Episode number 8. The card is going to change. Presented by AIW, Absolute Intense Wrestling, based in beautiful Cleveland, Ohio, and sponsored by Smart Mark Video and the This Is Awesome Wrestling Show. Make sure to subscribe. Get iTunes, Stitcher, and the Google Play Store. Follow AIW on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and visit AIWrestling.com for events, merch, and more. I'm your host, Glenn Morton. Joining me in studio, like always, we have co-owners of AIW, John Thorne and Chandler Biggins. And this episode, obviously, there's always talk of how you book a territory. But what I want to know is, how do you book the territory guys? And John Thorne, I'll throw it to you. This is going to be an episode. A lot of old school guys involved in this episode. I love old school guys myself, and I want to know, how do you book a territory guy?
Well, the majority of them, you have to find a landline that is currently in operation.
Yeah, it's definitely some detective work.
Yeah, like it's not like booking a modern indie guy where you can go to their Twitter and find their email or their Facebook, or there's so many ways to get a hold of these guys. Like some of these people that we book and we have been booking lately, it takes a lot of detective work and asking people and trying numbers that don't work, and there's no way any of these fucking guys own a computer. I don't think. And
it's like the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Like, Thorne finds out that this guy has this guy's number that has this guy's number that knows Terry Funk.
Yeah, so like this is more probably Biggins' department than my department, because he's the biggest Memphis wrestling mark probably on the planet.
Oh, love it.
But like the Memphis influence is 100%. Chandler Biggins' fault, whether you like it or you hate it. But
hey, I love it. So sorry,
some
guys.
people love it, some people hate it. But either way, I think it makes AIW stand out because it's so fucking weird, especially booking some of these people. I would say probably the first guy that we could talk about, which Biggins could discuss way more than me because it's a Biggins guy, is booking Colonel Robert Parker, Robert Fuller.
Well, like, we talked about in earlier episodes, Thorne kind of has his contingent of guys, and I kind of have mine that, if we have a date, we kind of contact. He contacts his crew, I contact my crew. Luckily, the Colonel, he's now on Facebook. His wife runs his account, but she talks as him, so now I could just send his flights right to his Facebook. But before, I had to actually call him on his landline or cell phone.
Yeah, how do we get his number?
Well, we booked Bunkhouse Buck. Well, we'll start at the beginning of Bunkhouse Buck.
Yeah.
We got to the point.
I forgot that Bunkhouse Buck came before Colonel Robert Parker.
Yeah, and we got to the point where we started booking people we love that we think other people might care about. Like Thorne's pick was Scott Hall. Well, my pick for the December show was 2 guys that I loved as a child.
Dare I say your favorite wrestler?
Yeah, one of them, Bunkhouse Buck and Colonel Rob Parker, were some of my favorites in about the 93 to 95 era of WCW. So anyways, we get an email from like an agent saying there's this talent available. And on the list is Colonel Rob Parker and Bunkhouse Buck, and it never had crossed our minds, but we had brought it up before as jokes.
And one of the weird fucking things about us, I don't know if other promoters are like this, but we just love knowing what people's fees and rates are. Just even if we never ever.
I think every person that gets fired, we email.
Yeah, like never, like people will never ever fucking book. I just have to know what their fee is. Like I don't know why.
Just fascinating.
I just love having that information in the back of my head. So we get this list from this agent, and
it probably has 100 names on it,
which you never want to fucking go through an agent because it's always going to be way more money and they're not going to negotiate with you. But this email from this agent puts kind of this bug in our head, like, hey, okay, let's try to find some of these fucking guys, and then
because the idea was that Jock Sampson's kind of an old school guy and Dick Justice is kind of like a guy who could go back in time.
Yeah, some people love Dick Justice, some people hate Dick Justice, some people think he's just like a comedy act. But Dick Justice wants to be more than anything is a wrestler straight out of 1977. Like, Dick Justice wishes that he was fucking born,
30
years ago, or actually 60 years ago probably, so he would have been 30 in the fucking territories. And, Because that's the shit he loves. He just wants, like, he wants to be that.
If I had $1
guy.
for every time he tried to get the Boogie Woogie Man booked.
Oh yeah, like this is like Dick Justice loves Memphis wrestling just as much as Biggins does, and Jock Sampson, I think, is convinced that he is from the fucking territory.
I think he got hit in the head too much. He thinks he's like an old school guy.
That's some kind of fucking amnesia shit going on with Jock Sampson. Like he has no, like, I can't even believe he's a real fucking person. But we start, this email puts this bug in our head.
Because I think we had pitched some other guys, but none of them ever worked out.
We're just, because, this goes back to, we've talked about before, is like, how can we be the weirdest fucking promotion on the planet? Because everybody books the same 15 indie guys. Let's do fucking weird ass shit, let's just try to think what can be weird. And something that I never probably would have gone for before, Biggins is like, let's book Bunkhouse Buck. And then he really starts fucking like amping me up, and like he sends out like these feelers on Twitter and stuff, and people are like, oh man, Bunkhouse Buck is the best. I hope you guys are booking Bunkhouse Buck. So I'm like,
and we were just like, we weren't even that serious at the time.
We were just fucking around, like just making jokes on our personal Twitter accounts, and people were like into it. So I was like, all right, let's fucking find Bunkhouse Buck. And we started asking around, and I think it might have been Adam Lash.
I think he talked to Bo James,
who got a hold of Bo James, or no, it was Anthony Lucchesio, who works for TNA.
The 98-pound loudmouth.
Yes, the 98-pound loudmouth. He runs the merch for TNA. He also got a hold of Bo James, and Bo James gave him a landline number for Bunkhouse Buck.
Bo James, the king of Kingsport, by the way.
The king of Kingsport. And, Anthony Lucchesio, he not only does he run merch for TNA, but he's like, he manages on every fucking indie in fucking Tennessee. Like, he does all these weird loops when he's not working for TNA. So he knows fucking everybody. And he's like, oh yeah, man, I seen Jimmy a couple months ago talking about Bunkhouse Buck. He's like, I'll get his number in fucking 24 hours. Well, I think maybe an hour later, he fucking shoots me a Facebook IM, and he was like, here's Jimmy's landline. So I know that this is like Biggins' like fucking idol. So I go, here you go, man. Here's Bunkhouse Buck's phone number. Let's see fucking what happens.
Yeah. So I call this guy, and I go, is this Jimmy Golden? He goes, I don't know. Who's calling? I said, is this Jimmy Golden? He goes, I don't know. Who's asking? I said, I'm a promoter in Cleveland. I'm looking to book Jimmy Golden. He goes, where? Cleveland, Tennessee? I go, no, Cleveland, Ohio. He goes, oh, what do you need? And I said, well, I want to book you, sir. And he goes...
Well, then he finally admitted that he was Jimmy Golden.
Yeah, then he goes, oh, yeah, this is Bunkhouse. So then he goes, I want X amount of money. And it was outrageous. And I go, well, sir, I just got an email from an agent saying X amount of money, way lower. And he goes, oh, yeah, I signed up for something like that. I'll come in for that. No big deal. So then I go, well, sir, I want Robert Fuller's number.
Which he knew he had you because you kept calling him sir.
Oh, I'm trying to be respectful.
Yeah, no way, dude. You just going to say, hey, I want to fucking book you.
So anyways, I go, well, do you have Robert Fuller's number? I know that's your cousin. I would love to, pair you two together because you were both on this email. Well, Fuller.
And because you love the Stud Stable.
Stud Stable's the best ever. It's the GOAT, the greatest of all time. So he is fumbling through paperwork like a notebook, and he goes, yeah, here's Robert's number. So I call Robert, no answer. The next day he calls me. He goes, sorry, I didn't get your phone message yesterday. I was out at the pool. I'm the president of the Pool Association. So I talked to him, and he goes, I'm not taking any dates. I don't feel like it. And I go, well, we have Jimmy. It's going to be a good thing. We're big, I'm a big, you're my idol, everything else.
Colonel Robert Parker is you're my idol. He says no, so he goes to you're my idol.
Yeah.
After calling the other guy sir.
Booked him.
You don't know how to, like, oh man, you're breaking every promoter rule in the book, man.
But you know what? Got him in Cleveland. He didn't want to come. He's mad that there's no nonstop flights to Cleveland. He was mad about everything.
Sir, you're my idol.
Oh, man.
Man, this is like Promoter 101, do not do this. This is why I book everybody I book via text, but you can't book these fucking guys via text.
Yeah.
They don't even have cell phones.
Yeah.
Well, they got to Cleveland. They fucking loved it. Bunkhouse Buck, we're going to have to get him back at some point. But the last time we tried to book Bunkhouse Buck, he was trying to fly in all day from Knoxville, which Knoxville, I think you got to fly about 3 different ways with 3 different layovers to get to Cleveland. And he calls me at 8 o'clock, and he goes, I'm in Ohio. And I go, well, where are you in Ohio? And he goes, Dayton. And I go, well, that's not going to work.
The thing that I'll say is like cool about the stud stable, Bunkhouse Buck and Colonel Robert Parker, is you expect these guys to come in and fucking hate everything that a modern independent does,
especially what we do.
Like, you know, there's high spots in the first match, men wrestling women, all sorts of shit that you would expect any guy that comes from that era to fucking hate. And Bunkhouse Buck and Colonel Robert Parker, they sat on the bleachers and they watched like the entire show, and they loved it. And this wasn't like any lip service or anything. This is, you know, on the same show where, you know, the AIW students were doing a 5-minute slow motion spot, and they loved every minute of it. They could tell you everything that happened on the show. They watched it like actual wrestling fans. And I expected the worst. I expected these guys to be like, you don't fucking know what you're doing. I was purposely avoiding them in the locker room because I assumed that I was going to get yelled at by these territory veterans.
Yeah, and Fuller kept like walking up to us, and I was expecting to get yelled at also. And he goes, I can't believe these two are engaged and they're wrestling each other, talking about Johnny and Candace. He loved it.
Yeah, so, you know, and like that sounds kind of crazy being promoters that are going to get yelled at by talent, but it's definitely a fear because, you know, these guys are in, you know, they are large,
to a certain way of doing
but they are larger than life guys, and they are people that we watched on television, you know, so it's like some of them come in with a, you know, I'm better than you attitude, and it's kind of, you know, it kind of is a somewhat of a standoffish thing at first when you're feeling out some of these people.
And like the awesome thing about Fuller is now that he's like so ingrained with the AIW people, he just usually has a crew in the locker room surrounding him, and he tells stories.
Yeah, he just talks about, you know, tells continental stories. He fucking sends the potato every show to get him a case of natural light because he calls himself the Natty Daddy, which I haven't had a fucking natural light since I was 17 years old. I don't think any over 21-year-old adult has ever bought a natural light to actually drink it. But I guess Fuller, that's his beer of choice since.
And he said the reason he likes it because it doesn't come in a 24-pack; it comes in a 30-pack.
Yeah, and you know when Booker T showed up, he saw the Colonel sitting down there with the fucking natural lights, and he walked. He's like, "You're still the Natty Daddy, huh? You're still drinking that fucking garbage." And Fuller loves it, man. He just passes out beer.
And you know, not to reveal too much of the locker room, I think people think it's like a crazy environment down there. You go downstairs, Robert Fuller and Jock Sampson are drinking Natty Lights and playing cards.
And, you know, just talking about Continental and telling booking stories and, you know, just you could not buy that kind of, you know, that kind of experience. So, you know, stuff like that is cool. You know, Robert Fuller, Colonel Robert Parker, however you want to call him, somehow he got himself on like an AIW regular, and he got himself a roster spot because he's just so awesome to be around.
I think we booked. They were only booked for the one time, and then you and I had talked about it the first time we booked them, how cool they were, and we immediately booked them for like the next show, and we figured it out on the fly.
And I guess, you know, we could kind of segue into, you know, booking another territory-ish person, which is Missy Hyatt, which, you know, Missy Hyatt was just one of those weird ideas we had because, you know, that's another just obscure name that we could book that's never really been to the Cleveland area. And I had sent her an email, and we were trying to think of different ideas, and she was just like, you know, just like Fuller, like, hey, I'm not interested. She was like, I just don't want to take any dates anymore. I fly out of Tallahassee. The travel days are awful. You know, I'm planning on retiring. I'm not really doing any indies. It's, you know.
Yeah, because she said she basically retired in 2010. It was just not official.
Right. So, you know, she was like, what do you have in mind? And I picture this angle, you know, where she's going to be with Dick Justice, and they're going to be working with Jock Sampson and Robert Fuller. And this is like a no bullshit story. I don't know if she'll be mad at that if I reveal this or not, but she essentially only agreed to take the date because Robert Fuller was on the other side, because they fucking hated each other for the last 30-something odd years, because she was mad that one of the times when Robert Fuller sold Continental, is, whoever owned it at the time, I don't even know.
David Woods, I think.
David Woods. That's when Eddie Gilbert and Paul Heyman were booking. And, that's, probably in the era of, the I'd Like to Talk to Tom and stuff like that.
Yeah, like 88, 89.
So I guess, according to Missy in the email that she wrote me, is Fuller was like taking the booking ideas that Eddie Gilbert was doing on Continental, and he was taking them and giving them to Memphis, so Memphis could do those same angles on their TV. And she was fucking furious, and she essentially only agreed to take the booking because she wanted to come and avenge Eddie Gilbert's memory and kind of, motherfuck Robert Fuller for stealing his booking ideas 30 years ago. And Biggins calls Fuller and he tells him the idea of working with Missy. Fuller hates Missy in return, does not want to work with Missy at all in this angle.
He's like, I don't want to do nothing with her.
I don't want to do any spots with her. I don't like her. And Missy, on the other end of things is saying, I fucking hate, I hate or dislike.
She wanted to embarrass him.
Yeah, like she essentially just wanted to come to Cleveland to motherfuck him on the microphone. Like she wanted to get like the picture of him in a Speedo printed up and pass it out to the crowd and
saying he's like a fender or something.
Yeah, like saying don't let this man in your local pool and stuff like that. And she essentially wanted to come to avenge Eddie Gilbert's death, which I think is fucking cool as shit, and Biggins thinks is cool as shit. But we're trying to not tell either side. Like, hey, he hates you, hey, she hates you. We're just hoping that they're going to get there and things are going to come together when they're both saying they really don't want to work with each other. Well, long story short, they get to AIW, they end up doing some things, they end up communicating backstage, and they end up bearing their heat that they've had for the last 30 plus years.
Probably as long as, we've been alive, basically.
Yeah, probably longer than, longer than a lot of people that come to AIW have been alive. They fucking despised each other. And they come to AIW, they start talking, they start playing cards with Jock Sampson, and, I guess, they discussed whatever their issues were with each other over all these years.
And I think they kind of compromised both ways.
And they end up burying the hatchet in the fucking basement of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, which, to me, that's one of those stories that you can be involved in pro wrestling for 40 years and something like that is not going to happen. Like, that's something that I'll remember forever. And, Missy wrote me a very nice long email just essentially saying, like, hey, we worked out our issues. They ended up taking a photo together, which it's just fucking... How cool is that? These two people that despised each other come together at an AIW show, which who would have even thought to book them together anyway? Not trying to give us this genius credit. It's just... It's so random and weird that we book them against each other on opposite sides, and they end up burying their heat that they had over Continental Wrestling and Eddie Gilbert. To me, like, fucking, that's what makes being involved in wrestling cool, is shit like that.
But like her email, like she sent it to Thorne and then he forwarded it to me. But it was so long and so detailed, and it almost made me tear up a little bit, just because she talked about how like she hated independent wrestling and how so many people treated her wrong and agents treated her wrong and all these other people. And she said like in 2010 she basically retired, and she said like so many nice things about AIW and how if we would have been like every independent show, she would love wrestling. And basically, like, we helped her fall in love with wrestling again. It was crazy. And, like, it was super sincere because she knew she was done. It wasn't like she was trying to get more bookings. Like, it was from her heart. And it was so long and so thoughtful. And it really, like, put a capitalization or an exclamation point to, like, her career. How it's crazy that she had one more show after us, but like finished up with us basically and said how it was such a pleasure and how like it was a highlight of her career, which, was so long.
And it's crazy to think like, all these, like we've, more recently than not have worked with quite a few of these kind of legend type people. And so many of them say like, nobody knows who the fuck I am. Nobody talks to me. Nobody knows anything about my career when they book me. And another person like that was when we booked Terry Funk. We had been trying to book Terry Funk for years. I got
at least 3 years.
I got his number when we booked AIW commish Tammy Sitch Sonny. That's how I got Terry Funk's number. So that was in 2007, and I had his number ever since then.
But I think we got real serious about it about 3 years ago.
Yeah, and like we had tried, and he wasn't interested, and I would call him occasionally, and he would say, "Yeah, no, I don't want to do anything."
And he would always kind of put down independent wrestling also.
Yeah, and he just wasn't really interested in doing too much. And we probably at those times we couldn't really afford it anyway. But ever since we left Turner's Hall, the crowds were up. We had more money to work with, so we're like, "Fuck it, like let's try to book Terry Funk." And I had called him, and I had had these long conversations with him.
Well, even before that, Colt Cabana had gotten us involved with Dennis Stamp.
Yeah, I guess we can't talk about Terry Funk without talking about booking Dennis Stamp.
So Colt Cabana, we're in multiple Facebook message groups with 1 million people. I think every day we probably have about 10 different groups going with different people, and we have one with Colt Cabana. And one day out of the blue at like 9 a.m., he goes, "Would you guys be interested in booking Dennis Stamp?" And it was something we had talked about for years, but number one, we had no contact with him. And number two, I heard that he was like on his deathbed, multiple times, which was true, but his cancer went into remission. And we go, "How do we contact this guy?" And then Thorne called him.
Yeah, so Cabana gives me a number for him, and because he was like, I really want to have him on the Art of Wrestling, but he'll only have people on the Art of Wrestling if they're in person. And I called Dennis Stamp and I talked to him, and like he cannot believe anybody is calling him. It's just like in the movie, and he proceeds to read me poetry on the phone
for hours,
for 3 hours, and just talking to me, and has no idea, of the the cult following of Beyond the Mat. Has no fucking clue that anyone's even seen the movie. Like totally oblivious to all of it.
Because he thinks his entire fame is from AWA television.
Yeah, AWA Wrestling at the Showboat. So he's just like, nobody must call him ever or something. So I end up talking to him for hours. And then he says, he doesn't know. And then, I call him again. And hours, and I'm with Biggins, and I just put him on speakerphone, and he's reading me poems about Bret Hart and telling me stories about Japan, and like another phone call for hours talking to Dennis Stamp.
But he still won't commit.
And he won't commit, and then finally, we get him to agree, and he thinks it's a joke. He thinks this is some long, drawn-out rib that somebody that has a joke to play on him, or some kind of, vendetta against him. So he proceeds to call me once a week. Am I still booked? I'm like, yeah, Dennis, you're still booked. He goes, "Are you sure?" I go, "Yep." I go, then I send him his flight information. He can't believe it. Like, can't believe somebody's actually purchased him a flight from Amarillo, Texas. And then, he comes and he has, he comes and he does the show, and we end up doing things where he actually wrestled with Grado, and Grado was a huge fan of Dennis Stamp. And
it was just a fluke thing. It just came together.
And Dennis Stamp cannot believe that people know who he is and love him because Beyond the Mat. And like we end up hanging out with Dennis Stamp for like 2.5 straight days. And
all I kept asking was, I go, "You got to get us Terry. Where's Terry? You got to get us Terry."
Yeah, we're like, "How do we book Terry?" And he says, him and Terry go to Denny's all the time, and that's really the only person he still talks to in wrestling.
Which the story is, he made. I said, "We'll take you anywhere in Cleveland. We'll buy you the best steak in town." And he goes, "I really want to go to IHOP," because when Dennis was saying when he hangs out with Terry only wants to go to Denny's because he's a cheapskate.
Yeah, and Denny's is cheaper than IHOP, so he wanted us to treat him to a nice, classy dinner at IHOP. So we did this, and long story short, Dennis Stamp goes home. He ends up calling me when he gets home and basically saying that we had saved his life because he had been in such a deep depression after beating cancer. He had nothing to do with his life because he couldn't, he was the king of the cockroaches, but he couldn't, do exterminating or anything.
They think the chemicals causes cancer.
So anyway, we say, we want to book Terry Funk. Him and Terry end up going to Denny's. He puts in a good word for us. I call Terry. We talk.
He still said no, though.
Yeah, we talk for a lot. He still says no. He says, "Call me back in 2 weeks." I call him again. He says, "I don't know." Blah, blah, blah. So meanwhile, the show's in 15 days. We say, Terry Funk's not coming. Fuck it. We'll try it again another day. We book all these other people. Little Guido, who's the fucking best. So much, we load up the show with different people. My phone rings. It says Terry Funk. I go, motherfucker. I go, he's going to do the show. And I go, we're not going to even be able to afford it. He calls me and he goes, hey, John, Terry Funk. I said, yeah. He goes, I got you in my book for October 16th. I said, yeah, Terry, but you never told me if you want to do it. He goes, I'd love to. And I go, fuck.
Didn't you say, I'll call you right back?
I'll call you right back.
And then you call me, and you're like, what should I do? And I'm like, fuck it, man. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, let's just book it. And, Terry Funk.
Sell plasma or something.
Yeah, Terry Funk is fucking pretty pricey, so I booked Terry Funk. He comes in, and he is the fucking best dude ever.
Well, I do my same thing about I'll buy you the best steak. And he goes, where'd you take Dennis? And I said, IHOP. He goes, I would love IHOP.
Yeah. So I showed up drunk to meet Terry Funk at IHOP because I was at some work function, and I just started asking Terry Funk about wrestling Mr. Pogo and FMW and all this shit that I would watch when I was a fucking teenager.
And so we're at IHOP and they're closing down, and they kept it open because the guy recognized Terry Funk from Roadhouse.
Yeah, he goes, "Are you the guy from the movie Roadhouse?"
So they kept while they're cleaning up IHOP, they let us stay there and hang out. And Terry Funk at the end of it looks at us and he goes, the only reason I'm doing your show, boys, is because you treated my best friend Dennis so well.
Yeah.
And then, so on the phone, he told Thorne nothing physical.
Yeah, he said he wouldn't do anything physical. And then after we hang out with him, he goes, maybe I'll throw a couple punches. And Biggins was trying to get him to plastic bag the Duke.
Oh, I was...
Without telling the Duke.
I had plastic bags in every pocket.
He had so many plastic bags in his pocket. He kept giving Terry Funk.
I think I handed him at least 5 bags. I go, Terry, keep this for later.
He kept going, bag them. But so Terry gets to the show and he's fucking awesome. And I don't know why I felt so comfortable with Terry Funk, but I was just fucking with him all day. I pick up Little Guido and then we go to pick up Terry Funk, and I pick up Terry Funk playing his fucking his music album from Japan where he's born Texan, and he's so fucking embarrassed. He's starting this fucking shit off. He's fucking throwing punches at me. He's like, you can't fucking embarrass me in front of fucking Guido. I've known fucking Guido for 25 years. You can't fucking hear this shit.
And so he gets to the show. And in the locker room, he's just, holding court. He's just the coolest dude.
And I start feeding him beers. I go, Terry, you want a beer? And he goes, well, fuck yeah.
They're free?
They're free? So Terry just starts fucking pounding beers. And
the Duke describes the look Terry Funk had. His Duke is all oh, I can't wait to work with Funk. He's so awesome. He said Terry Funk had the eyes of an old veteran that remembers the war. He said the Terry Funk that came out of the entranceway with a chair was a different Terry Funk than that was downstairs.
Yeah, so the spot Terry Funk said he would throw one punch.
Comes out with a chair
and just fucking destroys everything.
DDT on the floor.
Throwing chairs, fucking destroys the whole... None of that was supposed to happen. That's just Terry Funk just came out and the crowd popped and knew who he was. Because I think, he's another one of those guys that feels like nobody even know, nobody remembers me.
Well, the sad part is he said he hated independent wrestling before AIW because he says he goes to shows and none of the wrestlers know who he is and none of the fans know who he is. And he said especially he loves to give people advice and tell stories. And he says most independent shows he goes to, nobody appreciates him. And it's this is Terry Funk, probably one of the best of all time. You could get something out of him.
So Terry Funk ends up fucking destroying everything. We go on and fucking drink all night long. He fucking gets in my car. Total fucking Texas road veteran is just cracking Bud Lights in my car, throwing them fucking at the fucking signs. And I'm just like, Terry, it's fucking 2015, man. You can't be fucking throwing beer cans at fucking road signs in the city.
But the best part was him and Guido were just doing this. But they had the bar. It was a dive bar, so all they had were the chip clipped to the wall. So him and Guido and Terry had bought probably about 15 bags of these snack-sized bags of chips.
Well, I don't even know if anyone will care about this, but when I'm rolling in with Terry to the hotel, we were going to go to the hotel bar, and I see little Guido take off in the fastest sprint I've ever seen in my life.
Like a man running
at 1:30 in the morning. I thought he was chasing somebody. Somebody tried to rob him. We're staying in kind of a shifty hotel. We were at the J-Lit Hotel. This fucking guy, dead sprint right up the road into the darkness. Not 1 minute later, my phone buzzes. Text message, Little Guido. Hey, John. Went to the hotel bar and they closed down, so I ran until I found an open bar. I'm up on the left at the Fafuses. They're going to stay open because Terry Funk's coming. So we fucking head up there. Terry Funk walks in with his own can of beer. They're yelling at him. He's not listening.
Out of his mind.
Terry Funk. And we just fucking ended up sitting in there.
It was
I don't know if this is interesting to anybody listening, but sitting at a bar with Little Guido and Terry Funk and nobody else.
No, literally all it was you, me, Glenn Moore, Smart Mark Video, Gary and Shannon, and Guido and Funk. And Funk is just holding court.
He's holding court, just telling stories, and it was
amazing.
Fucking awesome.
He was a mother effing because he wanted, because 2 weeks from there it was Lawler versus Funk, and I was going there. I was telling him I was gonna go, and he was motherfucking because he goes, I don't want to give those fuckers money.
Everybody
to
was
the wall.
motherfucking.
It was great.
Yeah. So like Terry goes home, calls me in the Terry calls me in the morning, missed his flight because he was fucking still hammered, but he goes, don't worry about it. I'll fucking figure it out. Just wanted to call and let you know. Calls me the next day and literally made me cry on the telephone because he told me what a great time that he had and how like respectful we were and how like he hasn't been treated so well in such a long time, and
everything Dennis said was true.
And like to hear that from fucking Terry Funk, man, that's some fucking heavy shit.
And he's another guy that could have hated the show.
And he wasn't trying to get fucking more work or anything. And he was just like, I don't want you to ever book me ever again. He goes, I just want to call and tell you what how respectful you treated me and how much it meant to me. And like, now, Terry Funk has, he'll occasionally call me, which is fucking awesome for me.
And butt FaceTime you.
Yeah, sometimes he butt dials me.
But only on FaceTime.
Yeah, with a FaceTime. But, I don't know if fucking people care about this story or not, but fucking hanging out with guys like Terry Funk and Robert Fuller and even Dennis Stamp, man, it's fucking like you can't get those sorts of experiences fucking doing anything else but being a pro wrestling promoter.
And like, a lot of American history, they call the World War II generation the greatest generation. And it's almost like these people that came up in the 70s and 80s are probably the greatest generation of professional wrestling. And like, they're not going to be around forever. And the fact that people book them and don't take advantage of them in like getting their resources of their minds, like, we ask Fuller all the time, like, hey, what happens when this happens, or, this or that. And Funk was just like telling stories, and like, they're not going to be around forever, especially, a lot of them are at advanced age, and I can't believe people don't take advantage of their resources.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, like, to get those experiences, like, you can't put a fucking price tag on that because, like, you can book every indie guy in the world and they can have a good match, but like, booking some of these guys, like, it's so much more. It's like getting a fucking college education.
And in a weird way, it's very strange that these people we watched when we were growing up are telling us like how much they respect us and what we do, and it's kind of like vouches for us in the professional wrestling business when we definitely, or
at least
have
to us,
self-doubt.
at least to ourselves, because it's very easy to get down or like not know if you're doing a good job or not. But like, when Terry Funk calls you and like just wants to tell you that, and if anybody that's met Terry Funk, I don't know who has, he's a very matter of fact motherfucker, and for him to call and tell me that, like, dude, that's made being involved in wrestling so worth it. Like, I can't even describe it.
And none of these people are saying anything to their benefit. You know what I mean? Like, none of them are being like, oh, you guys are great, book me again. Like the Colonel, it takes a little convincing every time to get the Colonel back.
Yeah, but like, it's just, it's awesome having these people around, especially having like young students in an AIW school and people that some of these students probably don't even know who the fuck these guys are.
When most of the students discovered wrestling with Edge,
yeah,
it's kind of cool to have these people talk to the students and help them.
It's like almost having like a living time capsule that they can just there's so much knowledge there, and for me, like it's so hard to appreciate wrestling being involved in it so long. You just get kind of like, stale to it or whatever, just like it's just all kind of flatline. But like stuff like that, like, Terry Funk or Robert Fuller, Bunkhouse,
It's kind of like a high spot.
Yeah, or like Missy Hyatt, like stuff like that. It's just like, holy shit. Like it kind of brings you back to like the reality of like, not everybody is involved in professional wrestling. Not everybody can have these experiences. So like, maybe it sounds lame or whatever, but like, booking some of these people are fucking like has what made all the dumb stuff that we go through worth it.
Like I would say probably the last year of AIW is my favorite, and I might say that every year because it's like more recent, but it definitely feels like the last year everything's really connected, and I think a lot of it's with the veteran influence.
Yeah, so I mean
and Robert Fuller is still my idol.
Yeah, I don't know if people enjoyed this episode or not, listening to us kind of fucking nerd out about these guys that we idolize, but that's just kind of part of what goes with the territory of booking a territory.
And one thing when we drop Funk off at the hotel, go to shake his hand goodbye, like thank you, for everything tonight. And he goes, "Oh, we don't shake hands, we hug." And he hugged everybody goodbye. I know he was pissed drunk, but still, Terry Funk want to give you a hug and then put you in a headlock. Like it's
fucking great.
It's amazing.
And to know that he didn't even want to come for 3 years.
Yeah, like it's stuff like that is just fucking memories that we'll have forever. The people that were there, and like it was also cool to be able to bring these guys to Cleveland for people like us that aren't necessarily involved in wrestling that idolize people like Terry Funk and can come and meet them and have a conversation with them and take a photo with them. Like that's what I'm talking. I've talked on previous podcasts. That's creating the live experience. That's memories people are going to have forever. People will remember I met Terry Funk at AIW forever if that was one of their idols.
And you're creating more history being learned because you're having guys that may not know Terry Funk. They are Googling Terry Funk, watching YouTube matches, so they're learning.
Right, it's just kind of like a full circle thing. Yep. So I don't know how many more guys like that are left for us to book, but
the list is dwindling.
But we're gonna keep trying to do cool stuff like that for as long as we can.
All right, episode 8, Card is Going to Change, presented by AIW, sponsored by Smart Mark Video, and then This Is Awesome Wrestling Show. Make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, rate on iTunes, Stitcher, and the Google Play Store. Follow AIW on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and visit the website aiwrestling.com for events, merch, and more. Leave feedback on the episode on Twitter and Facebook. And for John Thorne and Chandler Biggins, I'm Glenn Moore. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks.